Hello, still continuing our discussion on applied general equilibrium analysis. In this video, we'll be calculating the forward and backward linkage, um, specifically the direct, indirect, and induced effects, right, from the input-output table. And in one of our videos, we got this input-output table from a more like a larger one. We compressed the about 41 activity sectors into four sectors: group one, group two, group three, group four, like we have here. Then we just give them names: group one, agri, manufacturing, just so that it's something we can work with. Then in that video, we calculated the social accounting metric. We derived that from the input output table. So now we'll be trying to get the forward and backward linkage. And so to do that, let me just create a new sheet so that it's we can do it side by side. All right. Um, so for the forward and backward linkage, what we'll be needing basically is this part, right? The intersectoral sales. So here we see that the agricultural sector is making use of 215,574.6, right, value of input from itself. It's using this from the manufacturing, using this from construction, using this from services, and then including value added um, part of its production, compensation to employees, compensation of fixed capital and others. It was able to produce this, right? This was its input, this is what it made use of, and the input is equal to output as we have in the input output table. So, but what we'll be trying to do now is we'll be expressing what we have here, right? Each of these values as a fraction of the total output, and this will give us what is called the technology matrix. A is the matrix we're going to plot first while calculating, trying to know the direct and indirect effect. So let's just do that right away. I'll call this um, A matrix, right? And then for the A matrix, of course, we'll still have the same sectors, um, agriculture and legs. Then we have, yeah. All right, so these are the sectors we have for A matrix. Now, instead of putting in these values in here, what we'll be doing is we'll be calculating these values as a fraction of the total inputs. So the value that should be here, right, will be equal to the value we have here for agricultural sector, right, divided by what we have here as the input, the total input consumed. So that would be a decimal sort of calculation. So this is what we should have here. And then for the manufacturing sector, we'll be doing similar stuff. So this divided by the total inputs using the manufacturing process, and on and on. So just so that it's easy to navigate, perhaps I should insert something before. I should insert this in the same sheet so that we're working within the same sheet, um, just to make it easier. Okay, good. So we could just copy this. No, if I just copy directly. So just copy this. This is an extract from the input output table, and then you can also copy the total. We need this total figure. This is the gross input. We need this total figure. Good. Okay. Sorry. Let me paste as text as values rather. Okay. All right. So what I have here will simply be the total for agriculture divided by the inputs for agriculture, right? And what I shall for manufacturing will follow through suit. So the total for manufacturing divided by the inputs for manufacturing. Now, what should be here will simply be what portion of our agricultural inputs came from manufacturing divided by the total of agricultural inputs. Here you'll be having what portion of came from construction over the total in construction. Right, for services you'll be having the same thing, this over that, and then we could just duplicate this over. The shortcut will have been to freeze, or sorry, fix the column for this division so that it runs through. So, but this is the technology matrix, the A matrix, and what this tells you is the direct effect. It gives you the direct effect. The total here actually gives you more like the the direct effect. So we could calculate this, just sum this. Let me just write this as this of sorry sum of what we have here, right? And then you could just do this, and you also sum here, and then drag down. So what you have here is more on along the vertical, the columns. What you have is the backward linkage. You have the backward linkage around along the vertical column, right? Because this is agriculture, right? And it's by backward linkage, you're looking at how does it links to other sectors in terms of its production process. So it requires this portion of its own input, requires this portion of manufacturing input, right? It requires about 1% of construction, requires right about 0.03% of services, right? And so this is the total percentage of input across the sector that it needs, right, to produce. But for the horizontal axis here, you're looking at the forward linkage. So agriculture is selling this part of its input to itself, selling this portion, right, about 11 percent of its input to manufacturing, selling this portion to construction, selling this portion to services. So that's in terms of the forward linkage. So this gives a rough idea of what the direct effect is. Now, how about the indirect effect? And perhaps an illustration could help set things in order here. When agriculture increases or you need to produce an extra unit from the agricultural sector, right? A 1 naira increase in agricultural output. What it's telling you is that you're going to need 0.03 from agric, you're going to need 0.005 from manufacturing, you're going to need 0.01 from construction. And so directly already, you're already demanding to increase agricultural to produce an extra naira value of agricultural output. You will need 0.05 from the inputs combination from those other sectors and including itself, right? But now another thing you will see is to generate that 1 naira increase in agriculture, which we want, and then you need this part of manufacturing. So you need to increase manufacturing production by this amount. And to increase manufacturing production by this amount, you need to use this portion of agric, use this portion of construction, use this portion of services. So to increase agricultural production, we know what we are going to need directly. Now, but to increase agricultural production, other sectors will need to increase their own production. So by virtue of the fact that we want to increase agricultural production, you're already creating demands on other sectors. So that's where the indirect effect comes in. And to calculate the indirect effect, we need to get what we call first the identity matrix. Then after getting the identity matrix, you will need to then find I minus A, right? The identity matrix minus your technology matrix A. Then you get the inverse of that, which from which you can now calculate the indirect effect. So let's just try to do that now. So the identity matrix, let's call it I matrix, right? Following similar um, ideology, we write the sectors across the column and rows. Then your identity matrix is simply a matrix that you have one on the primary diagonal and zero elsewhere. All right, so there's a shortcut we could use to do this. Um, Perhaps I will show that now. Okay, so the shortcut to do this, let me just clear this off. If I want to just do it with one click, I'll just write m equal to, then the formula, the exact formula is m units, right, into brackets. Then what dimension? This is a 4 sector by 4 sector, so 4 by 4. I just put 4 and equal to, so that gives me um, the identity matrix. Then now we could now find I minus a, the I minus a matrix now will simply be the identity minus the A matrix. Okay, so I should insert this ahead. Sorry. All right, so now this will just be the identity matrix minus A matrix. So I minus A. Then we can just drag this down. Okay, good. Then finally, we'll take the inverse, I minus A inverse. So I minus A inverse. And to do this, we are going to need the formula um, M inverse. M inverse. So let's just do the I minus A inverse now. So this is more like matrix stuff. So to do this, what you need to first do is highlight the where the matrix inverse is going to appear. Of course, the matrix itself is a 4 by 4 matrix, so the inverse is also going to be 4 by 4. So you highlight this, then you write equal to M inverse, and open the bracket, right? Then you select this. You want to find the inverse of this I minus A matrix, close the bracket, then type Shift Control Enter. So that gives you the inverse of the matrix already. So now that you have the inverse, you can then sum this. Just similar with the way we did the sum before. You can sum this, right? And let me just make this bold. Sorry, this should be bold. So that's the forward linkage now, right? But now encompassing both direct and indirect, right? And then if I do the sum, right? So now this is more like backward linkage, right? So we're already seeing our direct effects, right? 0.05 direct effect for this case now, direct by backward linkage for agricultural sector. Now the direct and indirect effect is 1.05. So already you can infer that the indirect effect here will simply be 1.05 minus 0.05. So the indirect effect is about 1. So what generates um that kind of we're looking at an increase in agricultural output. So the direct increase in agricultural output that is needed generates other demands, place other demands on other sectors. And when you add those um the more like multiplier effect now across sectors, you have a larger effect. So that's the indirect effect. If you want to find it, like show it more visibly in matrix form, we could just do this. Let me just call this indirect effect or something. Right, then I can copy this. Right, copy this too as well. Then the indirect effect is more like your direct and indirect effect, which is this, right, minus what is the direct effect itself. And then we can just run this for across the sectors. Now I take the sum of this exactly. So just about one, what we're talking about. just now for the indirect effect. And same thing here too. Um, take the sum for this, and then you have the indirect effect. Good. Now, how about the induced effect? The induced effect now moves away just from the raw materials now used in the production process, direct materials, but now is looking at in terms of value added, and specifically you're looking at the wage, and value added as you have your compensation to employees, right? And then household consumption, so which we call them pecons here, household consumption. So the role it plays is more like if you're trying to increase, still using the same example we used before, if you are trying to increase agricultural inputs by one naira, right? It means you need to employ labor. You need to employ labor, and employing labor, you pay them more wages, right? A fraction of what you are trying to get. And when labor gets this, they spend it, like the wage received from the factor market go to household, so they increase their demands even for agricultural output and for output from other sectors. So it's more like this additional activity that we're trying to increase creates more demand. So aside creating demand within the sectors, from within the sectors, it creates demand even from households. And so we'll be trying to calculate now the economy wide total effect. So the addition to this direct and indirect effect, as we've seen, is the induced effect. So to get the induced effect, we'll be having something similar, right? But in this case now, let me just copy this. Um, we'll be having additional values for, you can take this away. We'll be having additional values for the consumption of compensation of employees rather. So compensation of employees, I'll just copy this here, right? And let me call it labor, compensation of employees. Then the gross inputs as we had here before. Right? So the additional row we are including here is that of the compensation of employees, right? And then for the extra column that we're going to add in, we're adding this the one pertaining rather to the household consumption. So this pecons. So we just copy this and then can paste this. Yeah. All right. So now how will the technology, the A matrix look like here? The A matrix will follow similar outlook. Just copy this. Right. So the A matrix will be something like this. Um, Now you'll be having an extra column pecons, right? Then here you'll be having this, and following the same rationale, what you have here will be what you have in the agri sector divided by the total gross input, right? And then you just equal to, and then you express this across for services and this. But before we do this, so that I don't have to do it multiple times, I just fix yeah, I'm fixing the row now, right? So to fix the row, you should have a dollar sign in between. Now let's see if that works well. If I drag this across, what you notice is that this is um I2 divided by I7. This is I3 divided by I7, so it kind of saves a lot of stress. Then if I do this too, it works, right? So I have what I had here before. Now for the wages were to be taken as a fraction of gross inputs, right? So across. Then the household consumption now will be taken as a fraction of the total. Be taken as a fraction of total. So it's more like what is the total? Let's see, we can just find the total here. Let me put the total here. sum of this. All right, this is the total. So what you'll be taking now will be this as a fraction of the total. Use similar stuff. Sorry, what did I do? Sorry, you should this as a fraction of the total. So I'm trying to put a dollar sign here. Okay, then I can drag this right. Of course, this will be empty. If you try to drag it down, you're going to even have a zero here, zero, since there's no value here. But this is what you have for your A matrix. And now following similar stuff, just the way we calculated the direct and indirect effect. After doing that, next thing you want to do your is your I matrix, and then you do this for your I matrix. You're having like using the same formula m units talked about. Then now it's a five. We have four sectors normally, 4 by 4, but we are including an extra sector for the labor and the household consumption angles of five, and we get this. Then now you can now do the I minus A matrix. Okay, right. So I minus A matrix. I'll copy this too. Now for the I minus A, what we'll be doing is 1, right? This minus what we have here, I minus A matrix. Right, then we kind of like calculate this for all of them. Then finally, next one is I minus A inverse. So I minus A inverse. Here this right. Now I minus A inverse, similar ideology, select what you the 5 by 5 right now equal to M inverse, right? Highlight the sectors and shift control enter. So now you have your I minus A inverse, and now you can now calculate the sum of this SUM brackets. Then now this is the sum, right? Control, and same here too. Or sorry, before you calculate the sum, there's something that's supposed to be done. Let's just do that now. I'll delete this. Sorry. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Yeah. Before you calculate the sum, you are trying to we're trying to calculate the effect of each of the sectors, right? So we've got this I minus A inverse. Before you calculate the sum, you want to knock off these pecons and the wages paid to employees. They're not part of the sectors. So what I will do is I'll copy this whole stuff, right? But now what I'll do is I'll paste it as values, right? Paste it as values. Then I can now delete this column that we added to get induced effect, delete this too. So we are down to this sector. Let me just call this now the total effect. And now we can get the sum of this, sorry, sum, SUM, and I highlight this, then drag through, Control B to make it bold, sorry. Then same thing here, get the sum for this, then drag through. Okay, so now that is the total effect. So what then is the induced effect? We started with the direct effect here. Now with the indirect effect, we had this. Now we separated the direct from the indirect to get the indirect effect. We separated the direct effects from the one that combines direct and indirect to get the indirect effect. Now we can now remove this direct and indirect effects. What we have here, we can remove it from the total effect, right, to get the induced effect. So if I want to have more like now something for the induced effect, right, I can just calculate this way. So I can say that this will be the difference between, right, the total effect as we have it here, and then the one that has both the direct and indirect effect. I think we're done with this. So I can just even expanded this so that we're seeing it more clearly now. Yeah. So the induced effects will simply be this. We've done it already. Let me take it back. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So the induced effects, as we showed earlier, is the total effect as we have here minus the one combining both direct and indirect effects. And so you could just drag it through, apply the formula using the fill handle across both sections. Then now we can get a sum of the induced effects. What's SUM open bracket this. Okay. So now this is giving us the induced backward linkage. And now like the induced effect in terms of forward linkage is this. So what can we pick from this? Let me just pick the agricultural sector as I have it here, AGR, for instance. The direct effect is 0.05, right? So let's just say 0.05. I'm just approximating. Indirect effect is for the agricultural sector, that's the total. In terms of backward linkage now, is 1 point. Sorry, no, that's the total effect. That's the direct and indirect. The indirect effect is 1.00. Let's just say 1, right? Now the induced effect as we have here is 0.0.15. Right? Okay, 0.015 rather, 0.015. So we're having about 1.065 thereabouts. So that's more like the total effect 1.07. This is because I left out some stuff. Why doing the addition here? Or I could even just use the formulas directly. What we have here for the direct effect for agriculture plus, right, the indirect effect for agriculture and plus the induced effect for the agricultural sector will simply give this total effect as we have here. So that's how you can get your direct, indirect, induced effect, right, for from your IO table. So I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching. Bye.